blue eyes, nice skin, so gorgeous. We thank the life gorgeous. Thank the life gorgeous. I love the life gorgeous. Its torso is so tight.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Life Gorgeous. My name is Craigers. Some people call me Lord Kilby. This is where I share my magical life in hopes of improving your life. The focus groups have spoken. They like when I have my friends on. And today is a friend from Minnesota. He's a former stand-up comic. He also was the longtime producer of the television show Talk Soup with Joel McHale. His name is KP Anderson, successful comedian producer. And ladies and gentlemen, he moved from LA. He moved away from Los Angeles with his family recently. I'm going to catch up with him. I think he has Texas written all over his face, but he went to Connecticut. Please welcome KP Anderson.
I can't believe this. I have two corrections for you already.
Okay, sorry.
Producer and me. The Soup with Joel McHale.
Oh.
Talk Soup was
never seen it. Never saw
it. The Kinnear,
right?
Tyler,
Thank you. Right. Sorry about that.
The Soup, 12 glorious years to put my kid through private school, and former and current stand-up.
That's what I wanted. I'm glad to hear that because we're going to actually talk about that. So tell me I did a joke. I said you have Texas written all over you. I hope you enjoyed that joke.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever? No, your wife is from Connecticut, correct?
No, my wife is from Los Angeles.
I'm 0 for 3 on it.
You're 0 for 3. It's, I've steadfastly refused a Wikipedia page, and my lack of celebrity has supported that over the years. And therefore, where are you going to research me? How are you going to look me up? You actually just have to text me and go, what are you doing and where are you from?
Right.
And what would be the point of that? Leslie grew up in Encino. And we moved out here. I was here in 2019 before the pandemic started, producing a show for Bravo that was in post. And I kind of fell in love with the area. And then my daughter went to college in Boston and said, I love it here. I want to stay on the East Coast. And we were looking to sell the house in Toluca Lake anyhow. And we just went, what the hell? It's just, we fought this city to a draw. Let's go.
So you're in Greenwich, Connecticut, which is a beautiful area. You left Toluca Lake, which was a beautiful area. And thank you, by the way, KP years ago took me to the, is it just called the Toluca Lake Country Club or what's it called? Lakeside. That's it. Lakeside Country Club. I went in there, had a martini. I don't play golf. And he took me into the locker room and I got to see a tribute to Bob Hope, who grew up there. Didn't grow up there. He lived there and he had his locker still there. After he passed, and I don't know if the yellow pants, the lime green shirt, whatever it was, the great Bob Hope in the Lakeside locker room. That was a joy, by the way.
Yeah, it's such a cool because it's got his little NBC sports hat, and they kind of surprise you with it. You don't like every day you go there, you don't go, wonder what's in Bob's locker today. But they will because the club has sort of maintained its history and traditions, and Bob and Big Crosby were such a huge part of starting the club or bringing the club to prominence that they will every now and again, they'll just find something else of Bob's that they've got stored and they'll swap out the stuff. So you'll see a different.
Oh, that's funny.
In there. Yeah.
That's a private country club, correct? Members only. Yes. I think it's a who's who of, I think Timberlake is a member there. You probably know all these people. Do you remember the actor we saw at the bar when we were at the bar that night? Do you remember the actor we saw that we chatted with?
I'm trying to remember.
Because I was excited. Go ahead.
It wasn't Richard Kind, was it?
No. Is he a member? I love Richard Kind.
Yeah, Kind is a member. And I can't recall if Pesci was around when you were there that day.
No.
Pesci's
this is, I guess you could say a character actor, but let me just make sure I have his name right because he's great. Bruce McGill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, D-Day.
Yeah.
Bruce is such a great guy. He's genuinely like one of those guys. I'm glad that's the guy that you got to hang out with and talk to there, because Bruce is, a million stories and no attitude.
Right.
He's ham and egger.
He was having a nice big martini. So you guys were talking about Animal House,
Mm-hmm.
and I said to him, "Hey, underrated movie, Matchstick Men." He goes, "Thanks. That's a good movie." I don't know if you ever seen it. Do you ever see it? Maybe not.
In years, I
Nick
saw it
Cage,
years.
Sam Rockwell, underrated movie. Ridley Scott directed it. Anywho, that was a fun night. So, how is the big move? Are you grooving on Connecticut, and do you miss Los Angeles?
I miss some friends in Los Angeles. I genuinely really do believe that, like, when it was time for us to go, it was time for us to go. Like, we sort of made the decision quickly. We had known we were going to sell the house, but then once we had an offer and we accepted it, that's when we kind of went, oh, what should we do? And I think we were both ready for a break from LA, just in general, and also, it was funny. I was producing at the time I was producing Pickled, the pickleball special with Stephen Colbert on CBS, and that was with Stephen's company here on the East Coast and Funny or Die in LA. And I was working out of Funny or Die's offices, and my wife called me while I was driving home on the 101, and she said, why don't we? Because we were talking about getting a smaller place either here or in Minnesota, where you and I are both from.
Oh,
And she said, why don't we just do the second part? Let's just go to Connecticut. She didn't really want to go to Minnesota because she didn't want to deal with the winter up there.
that's
But
surprising.
yeah. I literally looked down at the Capitol Records building because I happened to be on the 101 just above it. And I remembered how excited I used to be to see it.
Yeah.
How excited I used to be to see Hollywood. And I just didn't, and it'd been a couple of years since I felt any of that. And you know how it is. You live in LA. You don't go to the beach unless you live at the beach. You don't,
Correct.
do that stuff. And one thing my adventures in life had sort of not led me to, all the touring and all the traveling and all the shows and everything else, I had never fully lived on the East Coast. And we really wanted to come to New England. And
cool.
so to that end, don't miss it. But I do desperately miss a couple of my friends back there and Lakeside. My stuff is still in my locker, but that's because I'm still paying dues as a member. And
wait, say the last part. That's because why?
I'm still paying dues as a member.
Are you seriously?
Yeah.
How come?
Because I'm back quite a bit. I think I actually, I'm not sure when this airs, but my membership is currently up for sale, and I'm going to become a national member of Lakeside, where I no longer, I don't pay as much, but I can still use it when I'm there.
Oh, that's cool. Wow.
Yeah.
So how are I joked about Texas. You would probably never live in Texas, would you, or not?
No, I don't think so. I have a lot of friends who went, and the Austin area, all of the, of the Rogans and the et ceteras of the world, all my friends in comedy who moved that way. And Austin, I've been to, and is a great town.
Absolutely.
Killer town. Is that where Beetle lives? Does Beetle live in Austin, Michelle?
No, she lives in San Antonio.
Okay. Also
she's from San Antonio. She works for the Spurs, and she grew up in San Antonio. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think, politics and other stuff, and heat. I don't think Texas is the right thing for me.
How are the taxes in Connecticut compared to California? Because Connecticut's pretty high in taxes, aren't they?
It's higher than most, but compared to California and New York, much better. Property taxes especially are way better here.
Okay.
And state taxes, I can't remember what the California is. I think Connecticut state income taxes are at like 7%.
Oh wow!
And yeah, New York is higher, but it's where we live, Greenwich. It feels, from a cost of life perspective, feels pretty close to LA when you sort of add it all.
I think the California is like up to 12, 13 state tax for income if you're a high earner. So that's of course would be you, Mr. Moneybags, the soup. Gosh, I wish it must have stung your ears when I said talk soup, and I apologize.
It happens every time I talk to anybody and they remember the show. Well, by the way, it's just a tribute to the staying power of talk soup, of that name, of that show. it's astounding. People who have no reason to have ever seen it will
I
reference
just
Buck.
I just said to Princess Cherry, I got to go interview my friend KP Anderson. He used to produce the show that won Joel McHale on E, and she goes, "Oh, you mean Soupy? The Soupy?" Kidding. She didn't do that. I'm just kidding. So let me hit you with some more questions. We are the backbone of America because we grew up in the Midwest in Minnesota. You go back. I go back for the Timberwolves in the playoffs. I got a lot of friends there and people in the organization, and I go bar hopping and restaurant hopping. First question: do you still live and die with every Vikings game?
Not with every game anymore. Like the Vikings have. But I'll tell you when it happened was when Brett Favre threw the interception
Oh
in
yeah,
the
New
in a
Orleans.
state championship
Yeah.
game against New Orleans. I had a shot of tequila in my hand as he hobbled out to throw that ball, and I saw the corner break. And I've never drawn up a football play in my life, but I turned to my buddy Boyd and I said, I've never seen him cough one up this way before. And I threw the shot back, and by the time the shot was down my throat, the cornerback was breaking up field for the pick six. It
Oh.
was, it was
Yeah, it bothered me on multiple levels. We had so many turnovers. That turned out to be Bounty Gate, where the Saints were punished. And then, of course, years later, someone said, oh, they would have beaten the Colts easily in the Super Bowl because they couldn't stop Adrian Peterson. So, the Vikings are still looking for that elusive missing Super Bowl win. And who knows? I do like the new coach. I follow the team. I still do live and die with every game. I find it very enjoyable. I've been watching the Vikings since 1972 with Chuck Foreman as a rookie. And I like the uniforms, and I like we've always had talent, KP.
yeah,
We've always
yeah.
had talent.
It's here's the interesting thing to me, and it's I still watch them. I still watch every game. I just walk away differently when they lose because
Right.
something kind of a little piece of something I guess died in me.
Sure.
But also the thing with the talent that's really interesting to me is that I feel like when we had Stephon Diggs, now we have Justin Jefferson. We've had great players come through, but I feel like there's little hints and tells along the way that this is kind of proof that if the Packers are having a down year, if there's enough team left at the end of the season, they'll take a Super Bowl, but they're not actively looking to build a Super Bowl. But then I look at the new coach at O'Connell and I go, well, he's for real.
Yeah.
And he seems great. And I didn't really have anything against Mike Zimmer until just his tenure there got a little long in the tooth and the players stopped responding to him.
Right.
But there's something about me. I don't have anything personally against Kirk Cousins, but I feel like him as the quarterback is in some ways sort of an admission that, we're not really trying to do more than get to the playoffs every 2-3 years and sell out the season tickets. And if something great befalls us across that, cool. But I would,
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that. I just know it's hard to build a Super Bowl team, and I know it's hard. Obviously, the quarterback position is so elusive and difficult to figure out. And I don't know if you've heard the rumors, but if Kirk Cousins on his last year, and if they don't re-sign him, there's going to be a tug of war for Kirk Cousins, they say, between the Rams and the Niners. So he is an efficient quarterback, but I understand I definitely understand where. If people say he can't win the big one, I get that. Mm-hmm. Even though if you have to build the perfect team around him if he's going to win the big one, and the defense is in a rebuild as we speak. Let me shift to something. I wanted to ask you this because on the Life Gorgeous, I do. I guess it's inspirational and educational and a how-to on living, and I talk often to the young people. And it's not even tongue in cheek. It's about drinking in moderation because I now have one martini a week. I also have comedy friends who are clean and sober, and I'm so proud of them because they had to stop. And I know that you and I used to talk about it, and you've been very careful over the years with drinking for various reasons. How does it stand now?
Still drinking. Not something I sort of aged out of, like power drinking quite some time ago.
What would that is that binge drinking or what is power drinking?
Yeah, just that tequila used to make me so thirsty for tequila.
Okay.
I used to just it was sort of fun time fuel. And so, and a lot of my friends who are comics, are no longer with us, and that wasn't so much about drinking as it was about other things that they had struggled to say no to, in moderation or otherwise. And so over time, as my kid got older, also I realized that clock is ticking, and I wanted to be present for those conversations.
Right.
And so, I'll still have a drink, more than one night a week. But it always kind of like, I've become sort of a 6 o'clock. I've been writing a novel since I got here. And with this writer's strike going on, that's sort of what I'm dug in on right now. And so by the end of the day, when I wrap up being so lost in my head with that, I really do like that one bourbon. I really,
Ah,
really like, yeah.
well, that brings up two things. I wanted to ask you what it is you drink, bourbon, which I find too sweet for me. And I used to drink in my 30 single malt scotch. Now I just do the clear, the vodka or the red wine, but cut way down. Don't drink beer. I know you barbecue a lot. I'm sure you love to have a beer while you barbecue. But the other thing you said was, when you're wrapped up in working, and this happens, it doesn't happen too often to me because I'm retired. But when I do some writing or do something or something with, like, after this podcast, I obviously have to have a drink.
Yeah.
But I do. When you're done working, you have to have a nice cocktail. So I understand that. So I know you're a big, intense barbecue guy. I don't know what it's called, the egg or whatever the hell it's
Yeah.
called. Do you drink a beer while you're barbecuing?
Once in a while, usually with the egg, which I'm eggless now. That went with the house in Toluca Lake, and we're renting a
Oh,
townhouse now while we property hunt in this sort of neck of the woods. And so I've just got a little Weber propane out in the postage stamp
okay.
backyard in the townhouse right now. But I would say even during the winter, it's still like a 3 to 4 night a week thing. And a beer is really good when you're doing, like, when you've got that long, the egg is a smoker, and you put meat on and you let it sit there for 4 to 8 hours sometimes.
Right.
And so having a couple beers across the way is a terrific thing. To be honest with you, usually that end of night first, the order is at 5 o'clock. My wife and I take the Yorkie Phyllis, who I would show you, but she's getting her hair done right now.
Okay.
We take the Yorkie Phyllis to the Central Park in Greenwich. And this is proof that I didn't leave in the witness relocation program. I'm telling people where they can find me.
Is that, by the way, you have to drive there? You can't walk there, can you?
It's pretty close. We could walk, but the Yorkie has very little legs. It'd be 10,000 steps for us and 180,000 for her. But yeah, we go down there, and there's a bunch of people that have their dogs that we've become friends with, and we let the dogs off leash and let them run around on the baseball field and hang out. And downtown Greenwich is just idyllic and
Yes,
beautiful.
it's
And so,
beautiful.
yeah,
That's
it's
one
right
of the
up.
more beautiful places, right? Isn't that?
Yeah.
I know this Westport. Which one is more beautiful, or is it comparable?
I think if what you want is the life near the water, in the downtown, Westport is more beautiful because they've got the river that runs right up the middle of it and right out
Right.
to Long Island Sound. Whereas Greenwich is it's on Long Island Sound, but sort of the city center is north of it. There's some beautiful beaches and parks, and my wife and I have been going to this place, Todd's Point, which is a public park that we will sometimes bring a bottle of rosé and a deck of cards and just go sit. And it's unlike LA in every way. There's so
Right.
far fewer people. You're really right next to the water, as opposed to that, half a
Sure.
mile slog across
Right.
the sand that you got to take. It's just beautiful. But to the schedule, after the park, we'll either go to Todd's Point and maybe grab some Jersey Mike's and eat some sandwiches and watch the sun go down, or we'll come back to the townhouse and I will barbecue, and that's when I'll pour that bourbon. That's when,
Okay.
yeah.
So the bourbon doesn't wear you out the next day. Good for you. Good for
Because I
you.
I really two at most, and not
Right.
every night.
And
Every once in a while we switch to the Cabernets or the Rosés.
is it safe to say that you're a very good barbecue chef?
Yeah, I think chef might be overshooting the mark a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
a very good barbecue cook.
Okay.
Have you watched The Bear on Hulu?
I watched the first episode. Everyone was telling me about it, and I might revisit it. But I watch, yeah, I watch other stuff.
It's very gritty and it's very right up close. And Joel McHale in that first episode has the most amazing cameo as the meanest chef that ever lived. But that's sort of like I would love to fancy myself a chef. I am nowhere near that intricate or precise.
And what do you cook? Because I try to balance how much red meat I have. I do salmon and chicken. I have in the past. I'm cutting down now, but I've always liked pork chops.
Oh yeah. That's got to be a Minnesota thing. I love a good pork chop. My Leslie doesn't like them as much, so I don't get to cook them as often.
Right.
But I like to do on the grill. I prefer redder meats.
Okay.
I guess I do like if I'm cooking on propane like I am now. I don't make a lot of ribs. I don't smoke a lot of salmon.
Right.
I used to, simply because it's just once you've sort of slow cooked something and let it stay moist and let all that stuff happen, you just can't replicate it on propane.
So Princess Cherry, who's a hippie girl, I've known her for 20 years, and she's she's kind of, she said before she met me, she was a vegetarian, but she likes to eat very, very petite, but every once in a while she'll say, I need some red meat. I need a steak. So I'll go buy a ribeye, because when I go out to eat, I never order steaks. I just don't do it. So I put it on my, I like to call it my iconic Instagram, this steak that I cooked at home. And then all of a sudden the Omaha Steaks DMs me and says, we're sending you a gift package. And so I have to balance it out, because a lot of it's in the freezer. I mean, I probably eat steak once every 3 months. I'm trying to be healthy.
Well, by the way, it shows.
Thank you.
It fully shows. Like, I remember when you and I went to Musso and Frank's one night, and we both had more than one martini, and we both ate steak, and they could have taken us out on stretchers that night. That was the tiredest goodbye I've ever said to anybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, there has to be in Greenwich some great places to have martinis.
Oh yeah, there's that Greenwich Avenue, which is sort of the big strip. There's a ton of places along pretty much all throughout, because Greenwich is sort of made up of Cos Cob and Riverside and Old Greenwich and Greenwich proper, and then there's Portchester and Rye, New York, and Stamford is close by.
Right.
And there are so many great, between watering holes and bars and high-end restaurants and diners. Like, that's probably been the most fun that I've had, is just finding places to go sit down.
Right. Do you have martinis, or only with Kilby? Do you have martinis?
I have martinis. I've actually got we were at Wegmans. Wegmans is the big grocery market out here on the East Coast. It's kind of the Gelson's-y. It's Gelson's meets Costco. It's way bigger and a lot more, but they have the best Gorgonzola stuffed olives. Oh. And so I bought those thinking of you and our friend. I think you know Gary Mann from
yes. Yeah.
And you two are the guys in LA who I would always, if I'm getting together with them, I guess I'm doing martini tonight.
Oh.
And I think about you guys. I should have texted you a picture by now of a little toast from the postage stamp backyard.
Yeah, it's funny. Just to get specific, because apparently the feedback is people love when I talk drinking and all this stuff is. So when I'm in my 30s, I used to drink vodka gimlets, because I didn't actually drink vodka in my 20s, but and then I stopped the gimlets because I don't like all that sugar. And then I went, olives. I do a twist now also. It's very refreshing. But this is what I found is people like dirty martinis. A lot of women like dirty martinis. And I did for a while. They're fine. I don't need it. But I just like the little bit of the salt from the olives. I don't eat the olives anymore. In my 30s, I would eat the olives. Now, if they are hand-stuffed blue cheese olives, I will eat them. And I've been to a couple restaurants, and the lady said it looked like cream in there, the blue cheese. She said she uses the fabric thing they use for the icing on the cake, the squeeze bottle.
Yeah.
She squeezes it in there. This was this restaurant in Scottsdale. And I was like, that is so beautiful. And then I will eat those olives. But I have friends who say they want a martini, and they say at the restaurant, they go, if you don't have blue cheese stuffed olives, I'm not going to have a martini. And I'm like, come on, man, it's not that important. But some people take it that seriously. And my buddy was criticizing the restaurant, saying, how hard is it to go buy a jar of blue cheese stuffed olives? So It's fascinating
It
how
is. It's. I don't think like I would still have the martini. I don't think the olive has ever been the headliner of the martini.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. I had this bartender tell me she was a writer in here in Hollywood. Very nice lady. She said two things to me. She said, "We're all functional alcoholics." I don't know if I agree with that, but that was her perspective. And that she said the reason she goes, Craig, I can take the house vodka and shake it enough, and you won't even notice, But don't ever waste good vodka in a Bloody Mary. Just use the house vodka and Bloody Mary. People like vodka because it's ice cold and it gets warm going down your throat. So
absolutely.
that's kind of what it is. Because obviously bourbon has flavor.
Yeah. Do you, well, so this is a question for you. Do you notice, I do notice it's not, maybe it's not a taste thing, but and I've never been such a connoisseur of pretty much anything. Like a wine, I can drink a lot of different varietals of wine and enjoy it for different reasons. And I will note when something tastes, markedly better.
Sure.
But with vodka, there are certain vodkas that there's a crispness to it that does taste, feel. The sensation is better.
Hmm.
Going down like anything out of Finland, anything out of New Zealand, it feels like it's just got a little bit more of sort of a like. I brought out the Topo Chico for you today, Craig, and there's something about Topo Chico that it's no different than any other bubbly water, but there's
Right.
something that pops a little bit more once it hits the palate. And I feel like there's a couple of vodkas that do that as well.
Yeah. So I always tell people, they always ask me, what are your favorite vodkas? Well, I like Chopin. It's made out of potatoes. I like Belvedere. And then Kettle One, and Kettle One has a little more of a bite for some reason. It has a little more flavor. And then, of course, a lot of my friends like Grey Goose because I guess it's so smooth. They distill it or do something or filter it so many times.
Mhm.
And anyway,
Yeah.
but some vodkas like my dad would drink Gordon's vodka, and it was so strong.
Yeah, my dad went on his goodbye tour with Popov plastic bottle.
Oh,
Yeah, and it was oof, that like that, and so that
turpentine. It's like
yeah, that's also
turpentine.
a when you've got that pleasant memory stuck in your head, that'll definitely like that when because martinis are another one that like God bless you for being able to do one because it's another one that you drink one and all it's really doing is screaming at you to drink the next one,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah. I
that's
I, that's the thing where, and again, I'm compassionate to my friends who tell me, "Craig, once I start, I can't stop." And I'm grateful that I can stop because and again, in my old days, I would have two or three sometimes with dinner and over a night and stuff. But, now I can't have a second one. It just hits me way too hard, and that's because my tolerance is purposely down because I don't
mhm.
I don't I don't drink as much. We're switching to your stand-up, which I'm glad to hear you're still doing it. I wanted to ask you just a general question with the political correctness now in the climate of our society. Do you make adjustments, or did your material never really have to? You didn't have to be that
My
careful,
material, like God help me, a lot of the stuff that I did way back when that was the day job was stand up, was certainly those were the words of a 24, 25, 26 year old man who was on the tail end of every bad relationship with every person who wanted to be in a relationship with someone who was gone 45 weeks of the year, all the all that stuff. And there was a lot of I wouldn't say abject hostility towards women, but there was a lot of resentment towards specific women that worked its way out in those stories.
so
And
this is your stand-up when you were younger, you're
yeah,
saying.
young,
So
single,
this
yeah.
was like a mild version of Sam Kinison, as he would.
Yeah, yeah, probably not, probably nowhere near what Sam did. Like, but there was stuff that I'm glad that my heyday was pre YouTube.
Right.
So by the time I was starting to get on TV with my stand up, which was pretty short lived, and I do like Comedy Central's Premium Blend, I had moved on to griping about soccer parents and stuff. Um,
Right.
so I feel like here's what I feel like is I think that a little bit more of a to-do is being made of this because of isolated incidents than really merits.
Okay.
And if you had to pigeonhole me into one political point of view, and I fancy myself quite the centrist, but freedom of speech is really important to me. It's been the lifeblood of both of our work, and it's been whether the stuff we've done on network television reflects that or not is different, because those are company standards and practices and policies that we're doing, as opposed to this sort of social spotlight that's been put on it now. And I have and continue to say and do things on stage that are dirty or edgy or counterintuitive to true political correctness. But I feel like that's the job of the comic. I feel like,
Right.
frankly, the job of all entertainers and all artists is to poke things and see what wobbles, and then describe that wobble. And so as I've done stand up between sort of right after the pandemic started drawing down and I was getting back up in clubs in LA, and now when I'm popping up in New York from time to time, the audiences that I'm coming across aren't really looking for, like, it doesn't feel like there's a litmus test on me as a person. I think that the litmus is still, are you funny?
Right.
And I think that where a lot of the people who pride themselves on being on that anti-woke other side of it. And I want to be super clear about this. I think that there's a lot of brilliant comics working in that space, but I think there's also a lot of hacks in that space who are trying to make money off of just riling up idiots.
Right.
And so you see them doing trans stuff with no real new thought involved, and no other thing other than to just get who's ever in that crowd in whatever state to start egging them on and yelling and cheering. But you don't really feel shoot, did I lose you?
Nope, I'm here.
Cool.
Did I look frozen? I probably look frozen as I'm listening intensely.
Yeah, I think that, and I think I see a lot of that on like TikTok for how little I actually look at it on Facebook, where you see people and you go, well, if you've got something to say about this that doesn't necessarily paint the trans community in the greatest of lights, but it's new and it's fresh and it provokes thought and discussion and makes people laugh, most importantly.
Right.
Like, if you can do that well, then maybe you can even make the trans community laugh at it. But if you're just out there with kind of, for lack of a better term, hate in your heart, what's the point? Write better shit.
Yeah, it's all over the place with the pendulum swinging and what people are doing and how they're, and more, you follow the stand-up more than I do, because I'm watching The Crown and Downton Abbey, and you're watching stand-ups from Cleveland probably on YouTube. I don't keep up with it. It's in your blood to watch that.
The pilot that will resume work when I get back from when we get back from the strike, hopefully will resume work, is a one for Comedy Central that involves casting a lot of stand-ups. And so I've been really immersed in names and faces that I haven't seen for quite a while.
So in your stand-up, which I apologize, I haven't seen a lot of it because I just like drinking with you, going to the Laker Wolves games. But do you do much political stuff or not?
Not really.
Yeah.
I kind of the new, and I've been working fairly relentlessly on a new hour that's sort of shot out of at least the writing side. I haven't been up as much as I'd like to lately, but from the writing side, it's sort of shot out of this empty nest life and the big move across the country and where my wife and I are in our life. It's dirtier than Tim Allen, but it's got a, that's sort of one of the big reasons why I wanted to do it. Was also, for all these years, I've been writing and producing, be it Joel or Wayne Brady or Bill Maher or Jay Moore or whomever, Kevin Hart, whoever I was working with. I've been writing and producing stuff for them. And I realized I was doing a guest spot with D.L. Hughley one night in Brea, California. And I realized that every joke that I had was no longer my point of view on anything. And because my life had changed. I between other things, my income status had changed. I lived a very different thing. And I was like, I'm not really telling anything that's true to who I am. They're still
Right.
laughing, but I'm not feeling anything out of it. So I sort of set the challenge for myself, since there's zero expectation on me from the industry to reemerge as a stand-up in any capacity. I've got this freedom that no one's waiting for that album. No one's waiting for that special.
Right.
And so I can go hack it up in New York clubs and, find it 7 minutes at a time. What is it that I want to talk about? Where do I want
Right.
to be?
By the way, whenever I go, I have a friend who has courtside Laker tickets at when the Wolves play, and he lets me go. I always see Jay Moore there, and we say hi, and he was so ecstatic. I don't think I'll get him in trouble, but after they got rid of Russell Westbrook, but I like to say he's probably, not the brains behind the organization, but he gets to whisper things to
Yeah.
Jeannie to make.
If I were Jeannie, I would just be like, Jay, shut up.
Exactly.
but he's, I saw he and Jeannie. That was very fun. I was back for some stuff before Game 4 against the Warriors, and a buddy of mine happened to get some tickets from his law firm, and so we went, and we weren't in our usual seats, the ones that you'd been to with me.
Right.
I'm no longer a member of that little cabal, but same guy, and he had these seats, and they were right above, where that entrance to the bar is.
Yeah.
To the under the stadium where all the super fancy people go, and I was sitting there, and that day, just by chance, I'm talking a little, but Colin Jost had just joined Lakeside, and I was in town partially because I was one of the guys who was sponsoring him to get in, and so we had his membership meeting, and then he went to the game with one friend, and I went with another friend, and he had different seats than me, but he was going down under the thing. So, and we're sitting right in the front row of that little walkway.
Sure.
And so he stops and says hi to me, and then 5 minutes later, Andy Garcia, who used to be my neighbor across the street in Toluca Lake, stops and, what have you been doing? Where'd you go? That kind of conversation. And then Jay and Jeannie came by. Yep. And finally, the guy sitting behind me with his girlfriend just tapped me on the shoulder and he said, I don't mean to be rude, but who in the fuck are you?
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
And I was like, I'm literally, yeah.
He knows, KP knows everybody. For those listening, by the way, Jeannie Buss, the Laker owner, the Buss family, and Jeannie, and I believe Jay Moore and Jeannie are engaged. We're going to shift now. Do you remember your top 5 movies of all time? Can you do that? Or is that, am I catching you off guard?
I actually came across them on my phone from the day that you and I had that conversation.
Can you look it up, or can you remember them?
My phone is turned off, and I'm not going to delay you. I think I can remember.
Great.
I think I can remember. My number one movie of all time is Casablanca. Okay. I love Casablanca and that's the only one that I can say the ranking never shifts.
Okay, that is one on AFI. I think it's number 2 or 3. So that's a very good movie. Yes.
Yeah, and there's just something that it's not messaging. It's not. There's.
How often do you watch it? Because I like to space out my all-time favorite movies. I don't like to wear them out, and then I'll watch other movies like Clint Eastwood, The Line of Fire, or The Firm over and over again. So how often would you watch Casablanca?
I love In the Line of Fire. Probably once every 4 years.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not. I've especially been on this whole move town, run from your past life kind of thing has led me to I want to absorb new all of the time. Although, my friend Kellyanne is the daughter of Alan Ladd Jr.
Kellyanne Conway? What's
Kellyanne Ladd. But she's the daughter of Alan Ladd Jr. who passed away last summer, and I there was a memorial for him at Paramount, and I helped to sort of produce the day because it was a very big thing that the whole family was trying to deal with, and she asked me if I would step in and help out a little bit. And one of the great things out of a bad time that came from that is that Mel Brooks was one of Laddie's best friends, and he was speaking at the funeral. His first time out of the house since the pandemic started, and we got to see him speak. I got to talk to him for a little while, and when Kelly was cleaning out her dad's stuff, she found Mel Love to, sort of as a joke, because Laddie had greenlit most of the great Mel Brooks movies. Mel would then get a copy and autograph it and give it to Laddie, and would autograph all of his books and everything, just to get under Laddie's skin that he was autographing everything. And Kelly gave me a bunch of that collection, and Young Frankenstein is in fact my number 2 favorite movie of all time.
I'm glad you said that. I listed it in my top 5 comedies, and a friend of mine, a comedy friend who I'll protect, had a problem with that because I think he saw it after the fact and he'd heard so much about it. He was younger, so he obviously didn't see it when it came out. But yeah, that's a great one. Keep going.
Yeah. Let's see. Number 3 is going to be The Godfather.
Yep.
Again, I'm not, I'm not breaking new ground with those, but number 4, I think breaks ground for a lot of people. Slapshot with Paul Newman and Slapshot can get as high as 2, depending on if we go to that second martini.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. And by the way, I've never seen it. I don't see a lot of sports movies. People have asked me. There are a lot of them. I've seen Hoosiers. I joke a lot about One on One with Robbie Benson, which Spike Lee calls the worst basketball movie of all time. And of course, he's wrong. It's The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh with my favorite player, Dr. J. Slapshot, I've heard a lot about it. Somebody asked me the other day, what do you think of Hoop Dreams? I said, I haven't seen it. I'm not a big sports movie guy. I find sports, obviously, it's just a different, it's unscripted drama. It's the original unscripted drama, and sports movies don't always work for me, but I have heard good things about Slapshot.
Well, yeah, I actually, it's interesting because you spent, a significant chunk of your career dead smack in the middle of sports and sports coverage and knowing and talking to athletes. And I think that plays a part. Like, I can't, movies about stand-up and TV shows about stand-up, I can't watch. I go crazy. And even if they're people who I know and like who are making them, I just go nuts because I just don't feel anything ever comes close to feeling the authenticity of what that experience is.
Right.
And so I don't know. I can't go there.
Well, the other thing that's interesting is I don't even watch a lot of comedy movies or comedy shows anymore. I mean, I love Frasier. I'm now rewatching Cheers, but I moved on a little bit where I joke to my friends that I'm still into comedy, but I'm more into just being superior. I think it's very, but I love espionage. I keep rewatching 3 Days of the Condor with Robert Redford. I like that stuff, and I like all the British stuff, and a little la-di-da. I don't know, aristocratic, but so sports movies and even comedy, I just don't watch it that much anymore. You watch Billions and Succession; those things are they're entertaining. I watch Bosch, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What's interesting about espionage and spy stuff and mystery thrillers is that, and especially I'm working on writing one right now, a mystery thriller and a book, and it's so rarely done great that, because it's editing and it's pacing and it's performance and it's all of these things that have to invest you and make you come along with it. And I think the number 5 is Silence of the Lambs, and I think that's part of it. It's just you have to invest so much, and you have to get it yourself. You have to figure it out yourself.
Right.
What is throw out the red herrings and get there. And as a viewer, I think as I read a lot of novels and I read a lot of crime and espionage and thriller and stuff like that. And that's the closest when you're adapting literature to a movie, that's the form the form that most resembles a successful experience. The movie viewer has to have that aha moment,
right?
At their time,
right?
And then they walk out of the theater snapping their fingers and really enjoying. Like I'm not a huge Dan Brown fan, but I love the Da Vinci Code movie.
Okay.
Because I love that riddle clue, breaking the code thing that goes on, and as the reveals come, it gets you closer, but you're still not there. You still haven't figured it out, and
right. So there's a guy. I always tell people this is one of my favorite. It was a 6-part series called The Night Manager with Hugh Laurie and Tom Hiddleston. I showed you a clip once at your office, but it's John le Carré, the British spy novelist. and he wrote it. And that's something I really enjoy. But I have a range where, again, I can watch Blue Collar. I can watch Bosch, who is a LAPD, and now he's a private investigator. That takes place in Los Angeles. Here's a weird one. I'm curious to see if you've ever heard of it. It's lighter. It was on the Hallmark Channel. It's Tom Selleck, Jesse Stone. Ever heard of it? No.
I remember it. I don't recall if I saw it or not.
So they
But I
have
very
a
much
bunch of
remember,
them.
yeah.
They have
Yeah.
they might have 6 or 7 of them over the years, of these 90-minute movies where he's an alcoholic cop from LA who either gets discharged or something, but he takes the job as a small sheriff. He's overqualified in Paradise, Massachusetts, this little town in Massachusetts. And you said the word pacing, and when you were talking about writing, the pacing of it, it's very comfortable to watch, and but it's not cutting edge or anything. But
No.
it's comfort. It's comfort crime.
I'm gonna have to look it up. I love Bosch, by the way. I love Michael Connelly and his
Yes.
novels, anyways. But it's too slow paced for my wife. Like, usually we'll watch whatever we're trending and tracking and whatever's hot, and then we'll go, okay, well, and then we go to bed. I'll put on Bosch, and then she falls asleep 2 minutes in, and then I'm 3 episodes down when I put it on next, and she has no idea what's going on because she just can't. Like, it goes so
Right.
slow. But
That's a great point.
looking up every detail.
Right. The pacing, it is slow, but I guess that's part of the allure.
Yeah, and Titus Welliver is just so. Yeah,
I had guys say that's the only reason I watch is because of Titus.
Yeah.
His voice, if you can imagine, is even better than your voice, and you have a great voice.
Well, thank you, sir. But I went deeper for that.
Okay, so you listed your 5. Silence of the Lambs was the 5th. Okay, so we're going to keep it moving. I only have 3 of these, but this is the Life Gorgeous quiz. Simple questions, profound insights. I'm dying to know. I got 3 of them for you. Before we get to the fan questions, which you're going to stick around, you're going to have to hold off on taking the Yorkie to the park.
Absolutely.
Did you say a Yorkie? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Phyllis. Her name's Phyllis.
Do you know what an Airedale is?
Yes, I love Airedales.
Okay, so I got my picture taken with a few Airedales just to say, look at me and my dog. I don't have an Airedale, but I like the tan and black coloring. I like all of that.
Airedales match all of your colors. So
exactly.
You're an autumn. They're autumns. It's just perfect.
Okay, Life Gorgeous quiz for KP Anderson. Your first concert. Do you, sir, remember your first concert?
Yes, I do. And I would go to it again. It was Night Ranger.
Oh, I was going to say Lover Boy. I just wanted to say
Minnesota
Night Ranger.
State Fairgrounds. I almost wore for you. I have a pink Def Leppard shirt that I almost wore for you today. But yeah, I'm such a Midwestern.
Now I've heard of Night Ranger. I didn't listen. They're not a hair band, are they?
Band? They're like a hair. They're like a hair band with a big ballad bent. Like their ballad, Sister Christian was probably.
Oh, that's right. That's the big one.
Yeah,
that's the big one.
Yeah, Motorin was actually what it was called, but everybody remembers it as Sister Christian.
Yeah, that's how old were you? Do you remember?
I'm going to say it was that tour. I'm going to say I was 14 or 15.
Okay.
Yeah, I was driven there. I remember that.
My dad, when we were younger, he knew that we liked the Jackson 5. And then there was this time when Randy joined the Jacksons, and they were called the Jacksons, and they were playing at the St. Paul Civic Center. And somehow my dad's company, Western Life, had tickets, and we went to see them and I was probably in elementary school. I might have been in 7th grade, but I think I was in 6th grade. And KP, I watched them, and I had never seen this in my life because I'd never been to a concert or anything. I saw a strobe light, and I saw them doing things with the strobe light, dancing. And my brother and I this is the greatest moment of our life.
Yeah.
So that was my first concert with the Jacksons.
Wasn't it great to have dads who had tickets?
I know.
My dad was a ad salesman for the Minneapolis Star Tribune. So I was at the 87 and 91 World Series games. But I also was at every empty Metrodome Twins game all summer long. He'd just drive us to Minneapolis and send us. It was right just 2 blocks from
Oh.
the Star Tribune, and so he'd just send us to the Metrodome with a bag of Super Balls, and we'd stand outside and like whip balls like into the ground, trying to bounce them up on top of the Metrodome, and then
Oh,
we'd go in and we'd watch a ball game.
that's fun. Yeah, I went to the old Met Stadium. I don't know. I think I've only been in the Metrodome once to watch the Twins. We thought it was silly. The ball would get lost up there and in the roof. But I went to watch Rod Carew and Cesar Tovar and Harmon Killebrew back at the Metropolitan Stadium. I think I might be a couple of years older than you. You can't tell by looking, but
Yeah, but back in that corner,
yeah.
those bats, one of them signed by Harmon Killebrew, one of them is Tony Oliva, one of
Oh,
them is Rod Carew, and I've got a Bombo Rivera signed baseball somewhere around here. That was the hardest thing to find ever.
wow. I remember him. Okay, quickly. I just thought of it. Can you just name 3 players? Harmon Killebrew, Rod Carew, Tony Oliva. Can you list their numbers of their jerseys? Do you know their numbers? I do.
Ooh,
Sorry.
gosh.
Just want to see if you know any of them.
Well, Rod was 6. Was
No.
he 6?
No, Tony Oliva was 6.
Tony Oliva was 6. Was one of them 24?
No, Rod Carew was 29.
29. And Killer was, I want to say 42, but I don't think I'm right about that.
3.
3. Okay. See,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's there. The information is there.
Yeah.
Speaking of 3, what a transition.
Mhm.
What are your top 3 sandwiches of all time? Now, before you answer that, this is one of my favorite questions. I've been doing this for the past few months, and I love sandwiches, even though I don't eat a lot of carbs. So it's a real treat when I do. And I'm saying that KP Anderson is the kind of guy who loves sandwiches and probably will give 3 great answers. Top 3 sandwiches. And this is no prep. I just surprised you with this.
Yeah. I think French dip is number 1. French dip done right, like either Philippe's or Cole's if you're in LA.
Can I ask a question? I don't eat a lot of French dips. I know about the au jus. Is that how you pronounce it? The au jus?
Au jus. Yeah.
Is there horseradish involved? Because I like horseradish with a French dip or not.
You can do horseradish in addition to the au jus, which is what I do.
Okay.
So you get a little bowl of horseradish and you'll dip, usually I'll dip the dip first and then into the horseradish. So the horseradish sticks to the dip a little bit.
Great.
And if you go to Cole's in downtown LA, you get you can either get the pork French dip, which is astounding, or the beef French dip. Either way, get it with blue cheese.
Oh,
they have the best blue cheese there. It's astounding.
I love blue cheese.
Yeah, so French dip is going to be number 1. I really like a good Italian.
Okay. Now,
good Italian sandwich. Yeah.
You're saying with the vinaigrette or the oil and what's the is it a vinaigrette? Is it the oil and vinegar, or what is balsamic, or what's on it?
Yeah, it's oil and vinegar and pepper. And then, I think it's a combination of like, this is just nitrates from hell. But it's the combination of the salamis and like, if you get one with mortadella on it,
yeah. And they have a special, what is it on? Is it on sourdough, or what's it going to be on?
Usually like a French baguette or an Italian baguette.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good one. That they have one over here in Larchmont. It's very popular. They make them fresh with mozzarella sometimes, and those tomatoes, basil, so many good things. Okay, that's a good one. Number 3.
You know what? Grilled cheese. It's got to come with tomato soup. But grilled cheese with tomato soup is
that's a good one.
Is there anything that you just go, you know what? Yeah, I'm just like, if you're not feeling like putting in a lot of effort, but you still want something to taste amazing.
Right.
I might even do that. I've got some Colby Jack up in the fridge. I might do that after this.
I came up with my top 3, and I said it to Princess Cherry, and she goes, "What about grilled cheese?" I go, I got to add the grilled cheese. So I took one out, but mine were Reuben. I had 2 warms and 1 cold. My cold was chicken salad. I like chicken salad. I like it with walnuts and grapes and red onions and cheddar and blah, blah, blah. So I do a chicken salad. So Reuben blows everything away from me. I love the sauerkraut and the dressing, but I had tuna melt because I like tuna melts, but I swapped it out for the grilled cheese.
I think that's the thing is, somehow the tuna convinces you you're being somewhat healthy, and you're not. You're still eating the cheese. You're still eating the bread. Right. You're just adding mayo.
Exactly. Okay, that was a good list. I knew you'd come up. I knew you'd take it seriously, and I knew you'd have a very good list. Final Life Gorgeous quiz question before we get to fan questions. What's your favorite sitcom of all time? Do you have one? Oh, the
I
pressure.
think I think my favorite sitcom of all time is The Office. The
Okay.
American version of The Office. I think it is. It's I'm because of the blind luck of our lives and careers. I'm fortunate to be friends with a lot of people that were on that show, and so I might be biased to some degree just because I like those people so much, like that cast. In addition, but I think if there's something that that as a family, we wind up quoting almost every time we talk. My daughter and I, it's Dwight Schrute. It's something Rain did. There's so much that I just love about, and even the late episodes after Carell left, the Spader episodes, those are on
Robert California.
yeah. On second viewing, Spader is like, we were all kind of shocked and missing Steve Carell when it started. And they did their best with Will Ferrell to put a little aperitif in the middle of it and give Spader a fresh start. But Spader was brilliant on that show.
I got to rewatch that. So
Right.
I'm a huge Spader fan. He's one of my. I will tell people. I know there are movie stars out there, but I prefer watching James Spader than some of these movie stars. He's tremendous,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, like my nieces, like the American Office. Did you see the original British Office?
I did, and I like it a lot. And one of my favorite stories, I got. Unfortunately, I was doing the Nerdist with Chris Hardwick on BBC America, and we had Stephen Merchant on, and so he told us this story. But I've also heard him tell it on podcasts. It's one of my favorite stories. Is after the night that it premiered in England, because it was so much more, docu-specific shot, and the comedy was so much more stark and harsh in it that he was sitting on the train going to work one day, and there were two ladies sitting ahead of them, and one of them said, "Did you see that show about the office, the workspace, the other night?" And the other one said, "No." What? And she goes, "Oh, it's hysterical. These people are just awful, and they're terrible to each other. And it's a documentary, and it's the funniest thing I've ever seen." And the other one says, I think I read about that. I think that's actually a comedy." And the other one goes, "Oh, well, then it's not funny at all."
Oh, that is classic. That is classic. It's great how these people interpret things. It is just, oh man, I like that. Okay, quickly, it's time for fan questions. This is people can ask me questions on YouTube. They can also go to my Instagram, or as we like to say, my iconic Instagram, and ask me questions. Lord Kilby, love your Instagram and the Life Gorgeous pod. I know you don't like to fly, but you seem cosmopolitan. Surely you've been to Europe. Can you tell us the places you've visited outside of the United States? Yeah, and I don't fly much anymore. So when I was younger, in my 20s, I flew more. I've been to Paris once and I loved it. This was when let's see how old I was. Well, this is out of college when I was touring with this basketball team. I flew into Geneva and I went to Stuttgart. I flew into Stuttgart. I went to Geneva and I went to Paris. And I've also taken a trip to London. This is kind of bizarre. There was a friend in the 90s who came into some money and for some reason wanted to go to South America. So I went to both Rio de Janeiro and Argentina. I filmed a small role in a movie in Winnipeg, Canada. And I took a trip, I don't know, kind of embarrassing, maybe not. In the 90s when I was at ESPN, I had a week off. I went to Cancun. The biggest oversight for me, and I will remedy that at some point, is I've never been to Italy, and I'll be going at some point. I'll check out Spain and go back to Paris, etc. Okay, what do you think of that? Do you think I've traveled a little bit, or is it limited what I did?
I think maybe limited against what folks' perception of you may be. But it sounds like a good docket to me. It sounds like Italy has eluded me as well, and maybe we should do that sometime. Maybe
Exactly. Just
yeah.
You're
My
going to have
wife
to.
does not care where I am at any point in time in any given day ever. But yeah, that would like I feel like that might be the thing is because you're worldly in your presentation.
Right.
And so I think people would be surprised to hear that you haven't done as much of Europe as specifically as like I see you very much as like, and again, another place I haven't been, but just from all the friends that have been there and told me about it as sort of a Spain guy.
Oh,
I think that
I'll go
you
there. Oh, yeah. I'll,
Barcelona. Yeah. I feel like you can pull off saying Barcelona too.
right.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back to Paris because it's like when I was, I used to live in San Francisco outside when I got out of college. And now that I'm older, I hang out at Nob Hill. I hang out at different places. So now I would go to Paris and I'd go to the Ritz and I'd go to all the bars that I've read about. And because I have a little more money now and I would just enjoy it. So I look forward to that. Next question.
Hold on, before we
Yes, sir.
move forward, I do have to say, here's one thing I can promise that I will never. You won't see me on one, but we would never see you on a cruise. I don't see you on a cruise ship in any capacity whatsoever. You would never leave your cabin.
You're correct. You're
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
I would never do that. Gregors, how long have you been having custom clothing made for you? And do you ever buy clothes off the rack? I will buy socks off the rack, but that could change at any moment. Let's see. At CBS, I had custom made shirts. And once you've had the collar fit around your neck properly, especially when you're a tall guy and a crooked shoulder and stuff, you just can't go back. So I only wear custom made dress shirts. When I was working local TV in Monterey, Salinas, I lived in Carmel, and there was a Carmel shirt maker and tailor, and he made me a blue blazer. Custom made. And this was the thing. So you got to remember, I'm probably like 29 or 30. When you get your first custom made blue blazer and you open it, and on the inside of the jacket, it says made for Craig Kilborn, that is a rush. That's a feeling. I mean, KP, do you ever have a jacket made where it says made for KP Anderson?
I did not have a jacket. The prized possession in the wardrobe that I've gotten to wear a couple of times, but when in 2014 when Joel did the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I wrote material for him, he bought myself and the other two writers, Brooks Brothers, personally tailored tuxedos.
Oh,
If anything keeps me aspiring to stay at a weight,
yes,
it's that I don't ever want to change that tuxedo.
Right.
I would imagine for you though, it's also a little bit by necessity. People, guys your size,
correct,
as they age, tend to get a little more portly than you have.
Yeah,
and so there's not a lot of just off the rack stuff that's there waiting for you either.
Yeah.
You can't just wander in to Untuck It and say, "What do you have?"
Two more questions. Craigers, love that you're apolitical, but I also love when you ask your friends if they've seen the Churchill movie, The Darkest Hour. Am I a good person? You're a great person, because I think I'm appalled that some of my comedy writer friends, when they say they haven't seen The Darkest Hour with Gary Oldman, where he won an Oscar, it's because they are a little far left and they can't handle the movie. Because I've talked to these guys. And then, of course, Gibby saw it. Not to put you on the spot, sir. First, what did you think of my answer for that? And then tell me if you've seen the movie.
I haven't seen the movie. I would like to say though, it's not because it's just missed me. I would watch it in a heartbeat, especially based on the recommendation. I absolutely couldn't agree more with the sentiment in it, because I feel like that's another issue that we have in the country. Like, I feel like there's this problem that we have, that there are people on one side of things who have shot way out to crazy, but folks on the other side of things just assume anything that comes from that side now must be deemed crazy.
Exactly.
And you can't look at, we all can't look at gravity the same way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's problematic to me.
So,
and by the way, speaking of Gibby, my next Zoom is for a golf charity that I sit on the board with our pal Greg Fitzsimmons. So
cool.
Yeah.
So I will obviously, I'll be writing a book one day, and I'm collecting information, a lot of anecdotes and a lot of comedy and a lot of inspiring stories in the book, but there'll be a chapter on leadership, and I only say it half jokingly, the leadership thing. But here's one that I run by people. I'm going to run it by you. I will say that I'm apolitical. I'm a registered independent. I was raised not to talk politics, which has infuriated some people and some coworkers over the years. I will not talk to them, even if we're in agreement. But I say this: I say I'm so level-headed, and I say my favorite two politicians in my lifetime are Barack Obama and Winston Churchill.
Mm-hmm.
Does that throw you off?
No, I don't think so, because I think that I am a Barack Obama fan. There's a picture on the 1, 2, 3rd shelf down that's from that night in 2014.
Below Harmon Killebrew.
Below Harmon Killebrew, of me with the said Obamas. But I think that Obama, in his messaging to the nation on very many things, but I jump immediately to after they got Osama bin Laden. I feel like Obama aspired, and more often than not caught a very presidential leader-like wave in how he communicated with the nation. And I think that that's somehow forgotten inside of all the discussion. And Churchill was, the best leader at the hardest time.
Right.
So I think that Obama would be thrilled to hear that you compared him to the other, because I took a picture of it once. So.
Well, he's going to hear it because he is a big fan of the Life Gorgeous, is what I believe. I just instinctively believe that.
I'll run up to the vineyard and check.
Final question, my Lord. Oh, that's nice for Lord Kilby. I've heard you say you don't watch or rarely watch any movies that are under a 6.8 rating on IMDb. That is correct. The Firm is 6.8. It should be higher than that. I watched that. That's my measuring stick. Can you give us a movie under 6.8 that you've watched? There are two. One of them is 6.4, and I've watched it twice, and that's Robert Redford in The Great Gatsby. It was made in like the 70s, 74, something like that. And I enjoy it. And it should be rated. It should probably be about a 6.5, maybe 6.6. And then the other one, I don't think people should necessarily watch. It's 6.2, but I love Carmel Monterey, and it's called The Sandpiper with Richard Burton and Liz Taylor. The theme song is The Shadow of Your Smile. And that's when that song came out. And that movie, Richard Burton, Liz Taylor, not very good, but I like seeing, the coastline of Carmel, Monterey, Big Sur. So those are two movies I've seen under 6.8. Your thoughts?
Wow. I have not seen the second one.
The Sandpiper. I don't think you should.
Yeah.
I just like Richard Burton. He's one of he was my dad's favorite actor. I love him.
Yeah, Richard Burton, Liz Taylor. I could watch. I would watch an old 60 Minutes interview with him.
Have you ever seen Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? By the way, it's very intense.
Yes. Yeah.
Very depressing, right?
Yeah. Very depressing. Very intense. I almost went down a road that neither of us has time for because of this game show I'm trying to create. And I stumbled upon a story about Uta Hagen, Matthew Broderick, and Peter Gallagher that I'll tell you some other time. That was.
I will say that I think at one point, maybe 18 years ago, in my top 5 movies, I was so blown away by Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf that I had it in my top 5 because she won Best Actress, the Oscar, and George Segal was in it, and he actually told me that when they filmed that, Richard Burton was nominated 7 times and never won an Oscar. And he said for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, he set the bar and we all just tried to keep up with him. And then, of course, Liz Taylor wins, which she was great in too. But Richard Burton never won the Oscar. Anyway, that's our story.
Have you seen Where's Papa with Ruth Gordon and George Segal?
I have not.
That was my dad's favorite movie. It is one of the funniest, darkest movies you will ever see. Like that's the one that I would say, please see it and then tell me what you thought of it.
Okay.
It is insanely. George Siegel plays. I don't want to give too much of the movie away, but he plays a young lawyer. Ruth Gordon is his mother, who is kind of winding down with dementia, and he promised his father on his father's deathbed that he never put mom in a home, so he's stuck with her. And so we open the movie on him basically trying to kill her, like doing things and it is, yeah, it's so dark and so weird.
Is it a comedy? Is it a dark comedy? Okay, yeah,
it's a dark comedy. It's so great, and it's got an amazing Rob Reiner cameo appearance in it.
Right.
There's so much good in this movie, and there's so much, like, nobody writes like this anymore. And
that's great. I'll remember it.
Achingly missing.
I'll remember it, just like I remember. Where's Papa? That's Papa. Who's Papa? Just like I remember the soup. I'm kidding. Yep. All right, brother. I really appreciate it. Great to catch up.
Great to catch up with you. I will let you know when I'm back in LA.
Absolutely.
Or if you somehow make it this way, will you please come out to Greenwich? And
absolutely.
Hang with me?
Absolutely. Right. I'm proud of you.
Thank you for having me on, buddy. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. That's KP Anderson, ladies and gentlemen. And that's our show. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time. And remember, young people, I'm proud of you.